I always think it's funny when people out here call Chicago the East Coast because we don't identify as the East Coast. We're Midwest, but um, I've gotten used to it. So yeah, I spent 5 years in the Marine Corps. Then after I got out, I did a bunch of like private contracting with the Department of Defense. Through that, I started doing private investigating. Then I got into like my armed PI license, and I've done a lot of just kind of like obscure jobs. I've never really had like a 9 to 5, so to speak, where I had like a specific boss above me. Um, and when I started looking for other work, I found this on Indeed. Was kind of like not really sure if I was digging it or not until honestly I had that interview with you, Devin. And then at that point, I was like, okay, I can see myself doing this. Like you said, once I met you and Zach, like I kind of just realized, yeah, these are good people. I'm gonna fit in here. So I was like full blown with it, ready to go. And it took a little bit of massaging to get my wife involved, but after she's seen some of this success I've had over the last few weeks, she's probably more in it than I am now. She's the one that's like, "Hey, are you going out today? What are you doing? What's going on?" So, um, other than that, I'm a musician and I got one kid and trying to think of anything else interesting about me, but I love working out and yeah, long walks on the beach.
All right, awesome. Yeah, so just shy of a Globe Week last week. Give us some insight on what made you have such a good week last week.
So I had a lot of stuff set up for that week. I was just coming out of the 101 course, so I got super hyped from that. A lot of good information out of there, and just super stoked to get back out in the field. And then on Monday, I just had this mentality. There was a couple of people I've been talking to back and forth, and both of those people, I walked in those doors without a doubt in my mind, knowing they're going to get signed up today. Like I just knew it. And it's hard to hold on to that feeling. I know a lot. I know everybody's probably had that feeling at one point or another where they walk in and they just feel good. Um, but yeah, I probably had that momentum come from 101 where I just told myself it's happening. Like, even if they give me an objection, I'm going to get over it. They're going to get over it. We're going to get over it together. So I had a really good start to the week on I think it was actually Tuesday, but we had Monday off, so I'm calling it Monday. Um, and then with that momentum, I kind of rolled it into a couple other um, bigger prospects that I had out there and worked just all the way through Sunday. And when I say work, I tend to go out a lot on the weekends, but I don't consider that like work really because it's more like I've made connections with these people and I'm just going to go there and kind of like build some more rapport with them. So it doesn't feel like work to me when I'm doing it on the weekends, but technically, I logged the hours because I was out there and yeah, I just had a really, really good feeling last week and obviously it carried over into the demos.
Nice, awesome. So so you said you were using a lot of one-on-one knowledge that when you came back, and they really built that confidence for you to kind of walk in and be like, these guys are definitely signing up today. I just know they are. What is some of that knowledge that you learned at one-on-one, like maybe two or three key points that gave you that confidence that made you just know that this is for them?
So one of them was we really focused on one of the days at 101 was focused on things like objections and referrals. And I realized through that point that I have not been handling objections right. And one of the big takeaways they had, I'm going to forget the word they actually said, but they told us to stop using the phrase objections because that kind of sounds salesy. Like you're objecting, I'm going to sell you why, you should. I think the word that they wanted us to use was responses, but it might have been something else too. I can't remember, but it was just less confrontational. And I realized whenever somebody hits me with an objection, it's already triggering this thing in our mind of like the boxing gloves are up. Okay, I'm ready to punch back rather than just really hearing their objection and then and showing them a bigger picture and letting them talk themselves out of the objection. And that was, like I said, the first two on Monday was really what I did was I didn't go in there with the mindset of like, I'm going to combat your objection. I just went in there with, let's talk about it and let's figure it out, you know, how to make this bigger picture seem right for you. Um, I actually forgot what your question was, Zach. I
No, that was exactly
hope
it.
I
It was
answered it.
yeah, yeah, you did. Yeah, what kind of knowledge you learned in one-on-one that was giving you the
Okay.
confidence? And yeah, so like that's really good at focusing on objectives and referrals. I feel like that's something we were just talking about in Missouri too with Andy, and it's something that a lot of people don't spend enough time on. Like we learn them in the beginning, and then we think we know them and have them all by heart, but it's never a bad time to go through and know them again. Like knowing those secondhand off the top of your head is always great. Just like you said, as soon as you hear someone start to object now, like you're just like, all right, boxed up. Nothing, I got a response for you, right? And then to get a response back. But it's not about fighting them and objecting them, like you said. It's kind of an aggressive tactic. It's about talking about it to find out what makes sense for you, right? Why does this make sense for you, and how can we make this fit you comfortably? So that's awesome. Let me see here. So, I mean, so is that like the kind of the primary thing you felt like you did differently with, like, compared to the weeks prior? And obviously with those, you had to finish that contract, right after your first month, and then, that cut into some time for you. But even when you were doing that, besides that 1 week you missed, I think you produced every single week. You've been submit perfect every single week you've been in the field, and not even just like a shy submit perfect. Like you're always pretty much averaging a green out or higher, right? So is there anything else you think you might do differently to kind of give you that next level to go from a green out to just shy of a builders, I mean, a globe week, torch week?
Yeah, so two things with that. One, you're right. I realize I probably have a bit of a knack for this kind of work. And I don't know if that's a work ethic thing or just a personality thing or what.
I can
But
promise you the work ethic thing after being with you for a couple weeks.
also, it's not my personality. Is that what you're saying?
It's that too. It's the personality of your personality is work ethic. That's part of your personality.
Yeah. But so up until this point, when I went to the 101 course, I was fixated on results. And I always am fixated on results no matter what I'm doing. But I realized in 101 that the results I was fixated on are the wrong results. And I'm going to kind of counter a little bit of what you just said, Zach, as a positive, even though it is. So you're right. Like every week that I went out when I was working, when I wasn't doing my other stuff, I was producing. And that was kind of what I was like fixated on. I was like, okay, I have to make this fruitful. I have to get results today, this week. And that was good. And I also realized it's bad because I want to think bigger picture and I want to recognize that, a business owner, if you own a hamburger shop, they're not fixated on like getting that one person in the shop every day. They're looking at the bigger picture, like, okay, what does my week look like? What does my month look like? What does my year look like? What does my brand name look like? And I haven't been doing that at all. So this week, I've slowed down a little bit as far as like trying to get every single day. I'm going to get this. I'm going to hit this number. I'm going to hit that those are all good goals, I think. But what I'm saying is I'm looking at bigger pictures now where I'm trying to get in like with the police departments and stuff where I wasn't aggressively doing that before, trying to get a hold of the police chief, the fire chief, and all those other kind of like power names. I was more like, let me just talk to this one person right in front of me and get them to sit down. And I think that shift in my mentality now, when I do those one-on-ones with people, it's a much smoother demonstration because I don't think I've ever had commission breath, but I've definitely had that like, let's make this happen. So that was the big click, I think, from the 101 was that, being the business owner side of it, that I was thinking like an employee before, whereas like I'm microscopically looking at this portion of the business and not looking at the macro level. And that's what I'm trying to transition into now.
Awesome. I
I
love
want to
that. So
clarify, I'm not saying like we shouldn't be hitting those demo, every single day, all the 2 out of 3 days. Like that's not what I'm talking about when I'm saying micro focus. I don't want to ruffle any feathers and be like, oh no, that's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about like the mentality of like, I've got to get this one because I need to, have this sale right in front of me. Does that make sense?
yeah, it's more of like
Okay.
you're what we call that is you're starting to marry your turf, right? you
Yeah.
don't care you don't care if Bob and Sue from the alteration shop sign up because you might have a great conversation with them, find a new friend, get a great referral, sign their friends up, and then 6 months down the road they're calling you back to sign up, right? You're starting to marry your turf. And wanting to get into the facilities, the police department, the all the things like that. Once you get into there, you're it. You're the guy. You're married your turf at that point because you're working with the city, right? Um,
So if I can just add one thing to that, and
yeah.
I'll let you guys know, I haven't really told a whole lot of people outside the people I've talked to about this. So the town I live in is called Belfair. It's unincorporated. It's not an actual municipality. I've been talking to a bunch of business owners, and I'm actually now starting to spearhead a movement to get us incorporated and get us an actual, like, city center, where we'll have to get a mayor and all these other things. And my hope is that if this is successful, that'll just open up a huge networking line for me where I basically know everybody that's in this local government. And then I can, you know, obviously I want to improve my town at the same time. But as far as the business side goes, it would be a huge boon for me if I can actually make this happen. And there's actually quite a bit of movement happening behind it right now, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, awesome. That's you didn't even tell me that. That's super cool, man.
It's
That
it's still kind of early, so I don't want to like start bragging about it, but it's moving enough now where I'm like, okay, I can start kind of spreading this information out.
starting a city networking group at the same time as starting a city. I mean, that's amazing, dude. Holy crap. All right. So while you're on that, you were going on to talk about the macro, the micro, the bigger picture. Besides like the bigger picture of your day to day in the city and working with these bigger, community people, what's your big picture here for you and your business long term, or even just this year and then maybe the next 5 years to get that vesting?
You mean as far as like with altitude?
Yeah, with altitude rise. Well, yeah, it's gonna be
So,
rise because we're gonna be our own agency soon. So
so I'm still at a decision point of like which way on that career track I want to go. Before I was pretty committed, like I don't ever want to go on the right side for the leadership track. Um, I'm open to it now, but as far as like in 5 years go, I've got a lot of personal goals as far as like how much passive income I want to be making, what I want my day to day to look like as far as like going out and making sales. Um, I can say this though, in 5 years, I still want to be doing this. Um, I mean, I don't want to go into like too specific numbers, like financially what I want, just because I think it's kind of, I don't know, loopy to do that.
if it's
Um,
personally,
say again.
if that's personal about your numbers and what you want to be making, that's fine. You can leave that to you can leave that out.
Yeah. But I'm in 5 years with this company. I definitely, I still want to be with Rise. I talked to you about that. Like if I was going to move, I wanted to make sure I stayed with you guys. Um, so the big picture is within 5 years, I want to easily have allowed my wife to stop working, um, at least the job she's doing. If she wants to work, I'm not going to keep her home, obviously, but she's looking to like kind of slow down a little bit, and I'm starting to realize that that's an absolute possibility, probably way sooner than 5 years as well. That's the big goal that we're working towards, and then after that, we've got ideas about we'd like to get like another house and stuff like that, but my big goal is to be having enough income coming in from this that she doesn't have to work anymore.
Amazing. Yeah, that's a great goal to have. Let me see here. so, so the last question I have to you is why? Why do you want why do you want to be and need to be successful here?
I've got a kid, and I want one to set him up for success, but two, I want to show him so he's old enough where he can see me working right now.
Yeah, your
And I
boys.
think yeah, I think it's one thing when if you have a kid and you're already in a certain level of success, they kind of maybe take it for granted. They don't really understand the difference, from what it was like before you were super successful till that point. And don't get me wrong, me and my wife, we've been moderately successful in what we've done before. But he sees me working now. He sees me when I come home and I'm still not really done. And he sees me up at like 5:30 getting ready for the Zoom call Wednesday mornings for the 6 a.m.s that we have. And that I would want him to see that there's fruit on that tree where if you put in hours, if you work hard, not only that you can be successful, but how successful you can be. Which I think anybody here with kids understands that where, it sucks if you're slaving away 9 to 5 and you're barely making, you know, ends meet and you're struggling paycheck to paycheck. Your kids see that and they think, well, why the hell would I want to do that? And it can give them the wrong mentality. I want him to see over this next, 3 to 5 years, because he's going to be going off to college soon. If I put in those work, that work, the ethic, the hours behind it, that something will pay off and that there's a reason to do that. So in order for that to be to happen, I have to be successful at this. I mean, there's just no question about it. I have to be. So that would be the number one reason. And then everything that falls behind that, I want a good life for me and my wife, and I want us to be able to, when we retire, not have to like retire where we're still working, we're still, watching the bank to make sure that we have enough Social Security coming in and all that crap that I've seen my grandparents go through, and that just sucks.
You won't even need Social Security with the residuals you're gonna have built up after all this. So
It won't even be there, to be honest. So it
it won't even be there.
won't matter
Uh,
if I need it or
I
not.
I think you just unintentionally gave me my new favorite quote ever. That not just that you can be successful, but how successful you can be. I love that. Well, that is all the questions I have for you. So if you want to take the floor, you can say anything else you want to say, or we can just open it up for people to ask you some questions.
Yeah, so I don't, I mean, I'll just do this really, really quick. I'm not the type of person that gets like super involved I shouldn't say that. I love team atmospheres. I'm more of like an observer though, and I'm probably the least likely to respond on like those Voxer texts and things. And it's not because I don't like anybody. It's just that's just not my personality generally. Is especially with
Not
technology.
the hype man.
Yeah, well, I am face to face though a little bit.
Yeah.
It's hard for me with like technology and stuff. Um, the one thing that I tell people when I run my own teams, when I'm doing my other job, this is something that's kind of come up a lot where people are talking about like they're afraid to get out of the car to go to the next business and that, that kind of mindset. There's an awesome, it's like a 3-page article that was written, I think it was back in the late 90s by it was a Marine Corps general named General Krulak. And it's called The Strategic Corporal and the Three-Block Warfare. I won't go into detail on what it is because it doesn't matter. But the point of it is that when you're at a decision point, 99.999% of the time, it is better to make the wrong decision or a bad decision than no decision. And the idea is like if you're in a firefight, I hate relating things to the military because I hate when guys do that. But if you're in a firefight, it's better to respond in some way to the incoming fire rather than to just sit there and hide and like try and figure it out. So the way I relate that to sales is when you get that bad prospect who just yelled at you and you're back in your car and you're like trying to dissect, well, what happened? And rather than like dissect all that, what I just do is I brush it off. And you can probably ask John. John saw me do this probably a couple of times where people are screaming at me and I'm like, all right, I just walk out and I'm ready to go to the next business. Like I don't really dwell on that stuff too much. And that's because of that mindset of like, it's better to just act rather than just like sit there and be like, what do I do now? And if anybody has the time and wants to read it, The Strategic Corporal and Three-Block Warfare, it's like 3 pages. It's
I just
awesome
Googled
mindset.
it. I'm sharing it on Voxer because I want to read this, but I'll share the link to everybody right now.
Cool. Yeah, it's a quick read. I mean, and there's there's been so much analysis that was done on that over the last 20 years because of the way warfare had changed. Um, but it's a good mindset and it's really kind of it's a salute to the Marine Corps without a doubt. So I mean, obviously, like it's very, very pro Marine. Um, but yeah, other than that, I don't have anything else to really, you know, I don't have a wealth of information, you guys. I'm still
I got a quick
learning.
question for you.
Yeah, what's
So
up,
for
man?
somebody who stepped away, I mean, we hear it a lot. We go on these train wars, you come back, and then some people can absolutely kill it and bring what they brought back from train wars, and if not, you have that off week. I mean, you're not even going on train wars. You left and was doing a whole nother thing, had a whole nother mindset. But obviously living with Zach, I hear some of the things that you were saying. You couldn't wait to get back, things like that. Um, Two-part question: what brings your excitement for this, and then also when you're coming back from those type of ventures and you're having to completely flip a switch and put on a new hat, what kind of routine have you just noticed worked for you to dive right back in?
Yeah, so I'll answer the second part first. I'm gonna be honest. I went away, so I know Devin said it was 1 week. It was actually like 3.5 weeks, and it sucked. Um, it sucked for a couple of different reasons, but coming back, uh, I lost my momentum. I lost my swagger, whatever you want to call it. And I had a fairly rough week when I came back. I mean, it was hard. I had a bunch of other stuff going on. My car broke down. I was dealing with that. But even that, like going into demos and stuff, like I kind of like I was just saying, I embraced the suck. I was like, all right, I'm gonna suck the next, probably 5 demos the next day, the next 2 days, whatever it is, but I know I'll get past it. And I just kind of kept going, and then I finally caught up to myself and was like, okay, I'm back in it. The reason I was so excited to get back though is honestly, I don't know what kind of work you guys have all done before. I know we've all got a whole bunch of different experiences. I was absolutely grateful for the chance that I had to run a lot of these defense contracts, but that job sucks. Like that job, it pays well, but it sucks. And when I realized like, wow, I can make more money doing this, potentially make more money doing this. And then like we always say, and I get to just go talk to people and I get to be like a normal human being, which maybe sounds ridiculous, but um it was just like there was nothing I wanted to do I regretted so much picking up that last contract every single day I was out there. And you don't know how many times, Zach, where I was like sitting in the car, like waiting for something to happen. And I'm just like, I wanted to just bitch and complain, like, God, you know.
Oh, I do.
But
You definitely that voicemail. I was like, oh man, I can't wait.
there was so many more that I wanted to do, man. Like it was rough. And I was working with a really, really good group of guys, some really cool guys with cool experiences and backgrounds. But I realized at that point that like this job is awesome. I've never had a better job than this. And when I say better, I mean, like I've done some cool stuff. This is just an awesome job from start to finish. Um, you know, I've had jobs where you got, people screaming and yelling at you because you didn't even do anything wrong. They just want to scream and yell. You'll never have that here. Um, just there's so many different reasons why this job is awesome. And then the one thing I always love about it is I love opportunity, and every single day doesn't matter. Yesterday was a crappy day for me, honestly, but today, because of this job, this could be a fantastic day. I just don't know yet. Like this could be my best day ever. It's all dependent upon what I do. And I just love that, the mountain is right in front of you. All you got to do is run up it if you got the stamina to do it. Um, that's what gets me like so excited about doing this, even on days where I kind of feel like I don't, I'm not really feeling going out. Maybe it's sunny, maybe the weather's crappy, whatever it is. But I know that if I do go out there, that mentality can switch on a dime, and there's no other job like that. I used to make sandwiches when I was uh, out of high school at a sandwich shop. There's never a day where you go in to make a sandwich, you're like, oh, this is the best sandwich. I love this. Like it just doesn't happen in any other job.
Absolutely, man. You're a baller, bro. Appreciate that. Wonderful answer.
Awesome.
Dude,
Thank you.
Mike, it's so good to have another military person in the career, because I have people ask all the time, like, oh, how do you do it? How do you go out and just take so many no's? How do you go through so many like failed people that come into the business and leave? And like, isn't it just so hard? I'm like, dude, selling insurance is nothing compared to being in Afghanistan taking fire, or getting yelled at by your drill sergeant, or waking up at 4 a.m. to go get thrown in a gas chamber. Like, are you kidding me, dude? I just have to go say hello to somebody and they might say yes, they might say no. This is not a hard job. It's a phenomenal job. And to hear another person be like, this is the best job ever, man. No one's yelling at you. Things aren't. I'm like, yes, finally, another person who's been through something harder than door-to-door sales. So I love just watching you go out and just do the job and be like, why are you guys so impressed? Like, I just went to work.
Well, and I want to add to that because I don't mean to like diminish anybody else's, everybody's got their hangups and stuff that bothers them. And obviously, like you saw firsthand, I've got a little bit of different so I'll tell this really quick funny story that I'm sure John finds amusing more than I do. Um, so John was telling me I need to be more like when somebody is, they're explaining the worst part of their life to you, you have to be emotional. You have to show that emotion. And a lot of military people, we kind of turn that part of our mind off. So I had a guy I was talking to, John was sitting behind me. He told me he died. He had a heart attack in his sleep and died and was like airlifted. It was like a $60,000 airlift to get him to a hospital. And he's going through all this stuff. And my reaction was, oh man, okay. Well, so do you want to buy insurance? Like there was no like, and it's not that it's not there in my mind. It absolutely is. I've just dealt with it so much that I'm like, oh wow, yeah, that sucks, bro. Which the reason I'm telling you that is because I've definitely had like these hangups where I'm like, that's hard for me. Like physically showing emotion to people is really, really hard for me. which is where like there's probably people on here like, what are you, an idiot? Like that's the easiest part of the job. So there's things that are hard for
Yeah.
me that are not hard for other people. And
Yeah.
I've been working on that as much as I can. It's like, you know, showing emotion, which is, I don't know, it's hard.
The empathy, the empathy.
Yeah.
That is the hard part for many people. Dude, a couple things that I really love that you said. The difference between responses and objections. It really boils down to mastering the basics, right? Like I'm willing to bet that when you handle those objections / responses, your words didn't change. It's how you delivered them, right? And so like that's kind of like the difference when people are like, well, what were you doing differently? It's not necessarily an external thing that you were doing. It's an internal thing that you figured out how to do it the right way. And I feel like that's a really powerful thing to just take note of. I love the one thing I love about the way that you're talking is that you keep bringing back to like, I didn't not do the 2 out of 3 days. I didn't not use the words for the objections. It's how I did it. And like the focus was no longer on just the words, but what I was trying to emulate with those words. And I think that that's a really powerful thing that might be missing a lot of people. And then just so that you know, there is no time frame where you have to choose the leadership side versus the sales side. You know, the vets have heard me say this before, but the new people maybe haven't. My first 2 years, my first year, I was like zero. I have zero desire to do leadership. And then I decided to try it out my second year and I hated it. And I got back into just sales because I was like, this is stupid. Why deal with other people's drama? When I can just know I can go out and make myself a ton of money and provide for my family really well. It wasn't until my third year that I was like, let's actually put the pedal to the metal and try this, right? So like, you're not in a wrong spot for having that mentality of like, I'm not sure if I know what I want. That's a good thing. Like you know, and you're going to grow into either that or grow into just being one baller salesperson. Like either way, you know, you're going to get your family to that situation, right? That situation where if your wife wants to work, she can, but she doesn't have to. And like where your kids see you be like uber successful, take them on all sorts of incentive trips, and they're just like, man, dad really provides like a different lifestyle that most people only dream about, right? Like that's where you're going. I can already see it. I think that's really amazing. So those are just a couple of takeaways that I saw. And I just really appreciate that about you. Like I appreciate the vision. I appreciate that the vision is kind of just like is also just like this is who I am. I'm going to go out, do my best because I like this is the best job. Like you cannot tell me that there's a better job out there.
Can I double down on something you just said, Devin, so to be clear?
Sure.
So the objections thing about first responses and like I word for word, it was the crystal ball response that I gave. Like I want to be clear about that. Yeah, I didn't change like what I was saying. It was more like after each segment of the crystal ball question, sitting back and letting them really answer me and then really respond to the answer and going down that thing. Yeah, I hope I didn't come across like, yeah, I totally just like changed what I was saying about the objections. Like
No,
it was word for word.
You know, I said this quote to somebody else just the other day, but it's like what Bruce Lee said. I'm not afraid of the man that's practiced one kick or 10,000 kicks one time, but I'm definitely afraid of the man that's practiced one kick 10,000 times, right? Like that, like basically, like it's not about like how many objections you can or rebuttals that you can handle and how like all the different ones. It's about just getting this one down and doing it so well that like it works.
And you know, actually on Sunday, the last day of that week, there was one more guy that I had scheduled that was potentially a really big sale. Not that the size matters, but it just was. And I've been talking to, and for whatever reason, I was way too comfortable with him. And he gave me an objection and I kind of winged it a little bit. And lo and behold, he's like, yeah, it's just not for me. It's like, and I walked out like, God damn it. Why did I do that? And I'm going to meet up with him again in a couple of weeks, but yeah, it was like I got too cocky with it, I think.
We've all been there. Don't worry about that. Awesome. Does anybody else have any takeaways or questions before we hop off?
I loved what you said about some things that you took from the military. That was going to be my question, was just like things that you took from the military that you've, brought